Hello, everybody, and welcome to Late Night Football. It's finished. Chelsea won, Aston Villa won, and that you've got to say the pressure is building on Frank Lampard. It's now just one win in the last 5 games for Chelsea, and they are starting to fall behind. Not from the title race. Most people will say they were never in it, but they are starting to fall behind even in that top four race now. And it's getting it's I don't know if it's the point where you start to talk about Lampard's future, but I certainly think it's the point where you start to question some of his team selection, some of his tactics, some of the players as well. I mean, the players are not blameless as well. But let's talk about the game first. And Chelsea actually started a little bit shaky. I think Villa kind of sensed maybe that there was some nervousness, so they actually started better. But as the first half wore on, you saw Chelsea getting into it. They had a clear plan of what they wanted to do. And I think Villa had a plan as well. They, as the commentators kept saying this, and it kind of seemed obvious, was that Chelsea's strength was they were going down the flanks every time they were trying to bomb forward to the flanks and trying to get crosses in. And Villa realized that. So basically, what they did was they crowded out the flanks, and it makes sense because in midfield they had Kante and Jorginho, not the most dynamic of passers, and Mount. He's good. His work rate is excellent. His creativity probably isn't at par with some of the best, with the likes of the De Bruyne's in the league. So they realized that there was probably not as much creativity in the center, but out wide when you've got Chilwell, Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic, you've got options on those sides. So they always had like a double up. I mean, Matty Cash and Burton Traore did a great markup job on Ben Chilwell and Pulisic on that left hand side. I thought Azpilicueta handled, sorry, not Azpilicueta, but Hudson-Odoi was pretty well handled on that left hand side as well. So Villa's left, Chelsea's right. So the game was set that way. The first goal though was from Chelsea was absolutely brilliant. It was almost I put this it was like a very well worked move. It was a brilliantly well worked move. The cross was excellent, and then the finish was brilliant. So it was almost like the superlative adjective sort of move from Chelsea, and that's what they're capable of. At their best, that is what Chelsea are capable of. Quick conversions, quick counters, quick passing. They're really good at it. And the one thing that stood out to me was the fact that the header from Giroud. Now, for all of Timo Werner's quality, and I know he's got quality. He's not showing it right now, but he's got quality. The issue is with Giroud in the team, it brings so many other players into it. He's able to bring Ben Chilwell is able to bring Pulisic. It brings Mount. It keeps Hudson-Odoi interested because these are guys that thrive on not just on providing service, but also having a target man who can kind of lay balls, lay off the passes. He can kind of head. He's good in the air. So you bring Ben Chilwell's crosses in. He's good in terms of finding wingers. Because that's what he did at the World Cup for France. So that brings Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic. Maybe when Ziyech will once he comes back, his crossing ability will also be kind of useful for Giroud. So I think Giroud as a player is probably a better fit for the kind of players that Chelsea have right now than Werner is. And for me, I know this was a game where obviously 48 hours later, so you got to make changes. So you brought Giroud in, but for me, I think Giroud should be number one striker for Chelsea right now, based on the fact that Werner is out of form and the fact that Giroud fits this team much better. I think he should be number one striker. I don't know if Lampard looks at it that way. I think he probably looks at Tammy Abraham and Timo Werner as his number one choices. But I just feel that Giroud is got so many qualities that these two don't have that I just feel that he should be at this moment number one. I do feel that Timo Werner should not be a winger. He should be looked at as a striker. And if he's a good striker, you start him as a striker. But if he's not, you keep him on the bench. But I just feel Giroud at the moment offers so much more than the other two strikers. But anyway, that's just my opinion, and that's just probably it's one game. But it over the course of the season, what I felt is that when Giroud comes on, Chelsea look a different prospect. It's largely because of the attributes that he brings that kind of fits the players around him. But anyway, that was a good goal to score, and I thought Chelsea would grow more into the game, try and get a second, try and kill the game off. They didn't do a Spurs where they sort of sat back and they said, 1-0 is good enough for us. It wasn't. They actually attacked. They tried to make chances, but it just wasn't working. I mean, and it was a one moment of weakness, of misconcentration from Burton Traore, who kind of let Chilwell run. But after that, I think he learned from that. He was like, you know what, I've got to stick. And he stuck to his task gamely. And Chelsea every time just went down the flanks. There was absolutely no passes coming in. There was no pass options. There was no cross options. So it was almost aimless crosses that were going into the box, aside from maybe one in the second half. It all seemed very redundant. It all seemed like very one pace, one dimensional. And sometimes you got to change it up. You've got a tactic. You've got to have a plan A. and that's got to work. But you need to have not necessarily a plan B, but you need to have some kind of alternate route. And even if it's not effective, what it really does is, again, it's about making teams think that there's, yes, this other option. Sometimes it will come off, but even if it doesn't come off, the idea is, the team has got to, the opposition's got to think, you know what, they've got that as well, so we've got to watch out for that as well. Otherwise, it's, oh, it's this one, that's all that's going to come along. So just keep focused and keep concentration, and just keep pushing them back, or repelling this first route one of attack. So anyway, Chelsea didn't look like they had that, and Villa grew into the game after the goal. They actually finished the first half pretty well. They started the second half pretty well, and then that goal happened. And and there's a few things that I need to talk about, that are sort of not related, but not related to the goal. But I'll talk about the goal first. So, it's interesting how Christensen went in for the foul. It was a foul from Christensen, by the way, but he injures himself in the foul because Grealish decides, this thing, Grealish left a little bit of his leg back. Now, I don't know if it was intentional. It looked, in replays, it didn't look intentional to me. It looked like Grealish tried to make the most of the foul, obviously, because that's Jack Grealish. But it didn't look like he was trying to injure. I think it was just one of those things where, one of those tackles where a defender comes off worse than the attacker. So Christensen's down. Grealish obviously is down because that's what he does after every tackle. It's almost like his legs have been taken from underneath him. He's lost his legs. Ghazi puts a cross in. That's a poor cross. That's cleared. The ball somehow comes out to him, and he suddenly gets up as soon as the ball. It's almost like a miracle thing, right? The ball's coming near you, and it re-energizes you. So he gets up, looks up, puts in a nice little ball in, and then somehow it finds its way to Mendy, who puts in a brilliant cross back again. That cross was actually pretty good. Mendy put in a good cross. I thought Kante missed the marker. Christensen is still down, by the way, at this point. So the person who made the tackle is still down. The person who's supposed to be tackled is already up. And then Kante misses El Ghazi completely. I don't think he was expecting a cross to come in. Maybe he was expecting that Jack Grealish would kind of be the sort of ringleader for that move, and so he thought Grealish doesn't the ball back, so somehow it's going to make its way back to Grealish rather than going straight to El Ghazi, which it did. And so Kante kind of missed that, and then El Ghazi put in a shot. I think Mendy was at fault for that goal as well. And I know some people will say it was too close, but I think as a goalkeeper, if it's going between your legs, that's not a good look for anybody, and especially for somebody who's playing at a team of the caliber of Chelsea. So for me, Mendy was also at fault because it's right at him. He's got to be better positioned. He's got to make sure his body shape is all correct. It wasn't. Maybe he wasn't expecting it as well, like Kante, but that's not an excuse. He's still got to do better on that, because if it's in the corners, you kind of understand it's too close, you can't save it. But it's right at him underneath his leg. He's got to at least try and make a save. And do something. But to let that goal go through is a little bit of poor goalkeeping in my mind. And I said this in the previous show. I said, in the season review, I said there's a certain goalkeeper at Arsenal who's going to want to move. There's a certain London team that needs a goalkeeper in Chelsea. So why not make that happen? And it's surprising to me how Emil Martinez goes to Aston Villa. And this is no disrespect to Aston Villa, but like Jack Grealish, it just feels like Emil Martinez should be playing at a much higher level than he's at. And Edouard Mendy just doesn't feel like a goalkeeper that should be playing for Chelsea. But anyway, that's how sometimes things work. He's been good, Mendy. I think he's been a little bit shaky over the last few games. I think he's starting to, starting to see why he has waited this long to get his move to Chelsea, why he hasn't been playing at a higher level up to now. I think we're starting to see that. Maybe it's just a blip. Maybe he'll recover. But it's just surprising when you have Emiliano Martinez. It was just waiting for a move to a club that needed a goalkeeper. It's just surprising. But on that note, and as I said, this is something to talk about, and I want to talk about Aston Villa a little bit. First of all, Aston Villa have been very impressive this season. I think they're now 5th in the table. They've been really, really good, and they played really well. The one thing that always that I kept noticing, the commentators kept saying, clever play, clever foul, clever tackle, or clever win of a foul. And I just thought, what is the meaning of the word clever? Is it actually a code for something else, because they can't say that it is? And to me, I feel Aston Villa, as good as they have been, and as as inspirational as they might have been for some of the smaller teams this season, the fact is that they do a lot. They do a lot of this. It's difficult. I mean, it's not cheating. You wouldn't call it cheating, because it's not blatant cheating, but it is kind of stretching the rules a little bit. It's kind of making the most of the leeway that is afforded to players when they're fouls. They try to stretch the laws, the letters of the law, to the extreme as they can. And some will say they cross the line. Maybe I think they're a team that if it was your club, you kind of appreciate it. You might appreciate it. you might see it for what it is, but as a neutral, as an opposition fan, you can understand when you're frustrated by it, because it's a very it's very scratchy. I don't know what the word is. I'm trying to think of words that I can use instead of saying that it's dishonest or cheating, because it's not exactly that. Those are strong words to use for this. It's not that. It just feels like every time there's a foul, the player goes down screaming like as if they've been hit by a bullet. That's it, and it's not just Jack Grealish. John McGinn did it today. I saw I believe I can't remember the name. I think I saw Matty Cash do it as well. They do that. They do that collectively as a team. And whenever there's a ball that goes out, they complain about it, like it's like the end of the world. So there's a lot of, even though it's not, even though it's actually it's there, it's gone out through them, but still, it's like, and I know most teams do it, all teams do it, but just when you watch Villa, you feel like that's a collective effort. I rarely see teams do it as a collective effort. I see two or three players, 3 or 4 players do it. I rarely see that as a collective team effort of trying to uh, do whatever they can to get whatever advantage they can in this game. And on that note, Jack Grealish, for me, I loved watching Jack Grealish. I think Jack Grealish is very, very unfairly treated by Gareth Southgate in England, because I think he should be a starter for England. Whenever I watch him, I get impressed by him, and I always wonder why he's playing at Aston Villa, why no club deems him good enough for them. But that's partly Aston Villa's fault, because he's not worth £80 million, which they keep asking for. A bit like Wilfred Zaha in a way, because he's too good for this club, but he's so overpriced that nobody's ever going to buy him for the prices that have been quoted. But the one thing I noticed is that as a player, if he's playing, it's a bit like Bruno in what he does off the ball, or maybe on the ball, but what he does outside of his creative play, the kind of the diving and the falling and the fouling, and the screaming. It's kind of like a bit like Bruno, where if he plays for your team, you kind of love that, you kind of appreciate that, you kind of understand it, and you're kind of forgiving of it because of the quality that he possesses. But if you watch him, as a neutral, as an opposition, you think, you gotta get on with the game. Get on with the game. That you really, you're not that hurt. Come on, just get up and get on with the game. And I think for that goal that happened, I think there might be some people be saying, well, this is why Jack Grealish is not, we don't like Jack Grealish, because he does things like this. He can be sublime, but he can also be ridiculous. The very next moment with his theatrics, and I guess that's one word to put it. It's theatrical. The theater that they bring to the game, that Aston Villa bring, it's theatrical at times, and that's what they do. That's where I think Jack Grealish, for me, I can understand the frustration that some people have with him, but then at the same time, you kind of get it, because a lot of players do that. I know, and as a creative player, you kind of have to do it, because otherwise you'll be fouled at every opportunity. And maybe the game has changed, and it's not as physical today. It's more about mental. It's more about getting inside the opposition's head. It's more getting into the referee's head. It's not as, it's more cerebral than it is physical, and maybe that's part of it. But it's just as a fan sometimes, and maybe I'm that kind of fan, just doesn't like it. It doesn't like to see that kind of thing. But anyway, on that note, Chelsea, and it's 1 win in 5 now for Chelsea, and a season that promised a lot. There was talk of title challenges. There was talk of maybe a title win as well. Some people getting a bit carried away. Not everyone. A few Chelsea fans got a little bit carried away, but they've now been sucked back down to earth, and it's now what's happening. Is it's getting worse. It's 1 win in 5 now, and the 1 win was against Aston Villa, which a lot of Chelsea fans would say that was probably undeserved as well. They weren't that good, but they're starting to sort of fall away. It was not a defeat today, so maybe that it will be a little bit of consolation. But it's predictability at the moment. They don't have a lot in the middle, and I understand. There was a bit of rotation that had to be done today. You're playing 2 games in 48 hours. It's not easy, so they had to do a bit of rotation. But even when you look at the subs that came on, Kai Havertz, supposed to be this creative genius, this creative wizard for Chelsea, hasn't quite shown up at all this season. Timo Werner had a great start, but now he's starting to fall away a little bit. Tammy Abraham doesn't really consistently score goals. He did score against Arsenal, though, but he's not a consistent source of goals, and he is a little bit injury prone. Hakim Ziyech, Christian Pulisic, same thing, injury prone. They're brilliant on the ball. They're brilliant when they go forward, when they play, but how often do they play is a big issue. Defensively, today, you can't play Zouma and Silva every game, so they played Rudiger and Christensen today, and I think they were a little bit exposed defensively. I don't think they were as confident as Zouma and Silva are, so there's issues there as well. Not that Zouma and Silva were that great when they played against Arsenal, but still, there's issues there. I don't think Mendy is starting to be a little bit unconvincing. Maybe it's just a blip, and we've got some time to analyze that. But there are problems across the pitch, and you got to wonder. Chelsea has spent a lot of money, and I know we keep talking about this. Money is not a guarantee of quality, but you pay all that money, and you've got to start wondering. Roman's got to be thinking, is Lampard the person that I want? Is he the guy who's going to take Chelsea forward? And let's be honest, if Lampard was in English, if he wasn't this great white hope that England have in terms of the Premier League wanting an English league winning manager, he would be under much more pressure. But because he's Lampard, because he's an England legend, because he's English, he's going to get a pass for a long time more before things get difficult, at least in the media. But backstage, you've got to be wondering behind the scenes what Roman Abramovich is thinking. I do feel that Lampard has got some tactical ability. I don't think he's completely incompetent. I don't think that is the case. I think he shows. I think what Lampard, what the issue what Lampard has is maybe he's been let down a little bit by the players. Some through by not performing. That's Werner and Havertz, and then also Ziyech's injury hasn't helped. So he's been affected by that. But I also feel that at times it's too predictable. It's too one-dimensional, as I said. Like it's always if you keep following the same patterns and the same game plans, what happens is teams eventually catch on, and you don't have anything else to kind of take them away from it, to kind of make them think. And today it was the same thing. It was every time the ball came to the midfield, it went out to Azpilicueta, it went out to Chilwell. Somehow it would make its way to Hudson-Odoi, somehow it would make its way to Pulisic, but you never saw Mount, with the running with the ball. You never saw Kante. And Kante and Jorginho is a midfield that never works because they're two CDMs. Then one of them has to kind of take the initiative and try to go forward, and neither one of them really wants to do it. Neither one of them really can do it. I thought Kante tried to do it today. There was a few shots that he had. He never looked comfortable in that position. He never looks comfortable in an advanced position. He's the kind of player you just want to let run around, do his thing. So that doesn't work, but they had to play them because of the timing. But you never saw either of those two players being enterprising in attack, and that is the issue. If you're not going to score goals, you're not going to win games. And it is difficult to see. I mean, I know Chelsea will probably bounce back at some point. They'll probably go on a run again. But those kind of things may win you a cup. They might win you a trophy here and there, but they don't win you league titles. You can't win league titles by winning 7 games or 8 games in a row and then losing 3 or 4 in a row. You win them by winning 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 games in a row. That's how you win league titles. But anyway, it's finished. Chelsea won, Aston Villa won. It's a point gain for Aston Villa in some ways, 2 points stopped for Chelsea. That puts them a little bit further out of touch with the top 4 race. They're not out of it yet. They're still in the Champions League, in the hunt for the Champions League places. I don't think that's done yet. But I think title talk for now should definitely come to a close. And we're starting to see this with every team now. We said it yesterday, Tottenham's title challenge probably over. Chelsea's title challenge probably over. Leicester drew today. Is their title challenge probably over as well? So we're starting to say this. So who's really left? And then you kind of see that there's just one team standing above. But anyway, that's a conversation for a different day. But I mean, Chelsea is still in the top 4 race, but they're kind of making it difficult for themselves. So they've got to come out of this, and we'll see what happens next. They've got Manchester City up next if that game goes ahead. There's still question marks over that, but we'll see how that goes. But thank you so much for watching. We were going to do Everton Manchester City, but that game has been postponed now because of a COVID outbreak. So we won't be doing that one, but we'll be back tomorrow with match reactions for the Wolves Manchester United game. That game that happens tomorrow will be there. We'll be doing reactions for that. Probably won't be able to do the Arsenal game before that because of the timing issue. It's not a lot of time between the 2 games, so probably won't be able to do that. Maybe we'll do a summary after, but we'll look into that. But thank you so much for watching. Please remember to smash a like if you enjoyed this video. Please send me your comments and let me know what you thought of the game. What do you think of Chelsea and Frank Lampard right now? Do you back him? Do you support him? Do you think he's starting to lose control a little bit? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. And please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. Always appreciate the subscriptions and the support. So please keep them coming. And we'll keep the videos. You keep the subscriptions coming, I'll keep the videos coming. Let's make a deal. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Have a good day or night, and see you soon. Bye-bye.